I'm Amber. Growing up, everything seemed perfect, or at least that's what I told myself. Our massive house in the suburbs was always immaculate, thanks to my mom's obsession with cleanliness. My dad, a successful engineer, earned a solid income, while my younger brother Jake and I attended the finest private school in town. But underneath the perfect facade, something was missing: my parents' love and attention. Ever since Jake was born, it was clear he was the favored child. Mom and Dad couldn't stop praising him, while I quietly faded into the background. When Jake started playing hockey at 5, it felt like he had won the lottery. Dad would boast to anyone who would listen, saying, "That's our future NHL star. Jake's going to be the next Gretzky." Meanwhile, I sat there with my straight-A report card, feeling invisible. But that's what happens when you're the overlooked child. Jake's obsession with hockey only grew stronger as our parents pushed him harder. They spent a fortune on top-tier gear, private coaching, and expensive summer camps. Hockey became his entire world. Don't get me wrong, I loved my brother. Jake was a good kid, even if he could be a little bratty at times. But seeing him wear $500 skates while I wore hand-me-downs made me feel a deep sense of resentment. I didn't realize it at the time, but those feelings would only grow stronger as the years passed. After high school, I left home for college, determined to create my own path. I dove into my studies and was accepted into a prestigious interior design program. This was my passion, something that was truly mine and not overshadowed by Jake's endless hockey journey. College life offered new opportunities, and the constant weight of being the forgotten child at home slowly began to fade. I rarely called my parents, and when I did, the conversations were brief and shallow. Then, in my junior year, I received an unexpected update from home, and it wasn't good. "Amber, you won't believe this," Mom said, clearly irritated. "Jake's coach is being totally unreasonable. He's barely getting any playing time." I rolled my eyes, knowing she couldn't see me through the phone. "What's going on?" I asked. "Jake's 16 now, and suddenly he's not getting the ice time he deserves. We've invested so much in his training, and now he's just sitting on the bench. Your dad and I tried talking to the coach, even the team owner, but they won't listen." Time flew by, and before I knew it, I was walking across the stage at graduation. I spotted my parents in the crowd, constantly distracted by their phones. After the ceremony, I approached them, diploma in hand, feeling a sense of pride. "Congrats, sweetie," Dad said, offering a quick hug. "We can't stay long. Jake's got a big game tonight. We promised we'd get there early to talk strategy with his coach." I watched them rush off, and the familiar weight of the situation sank in. Same old story. A few months later, I was settled in my own apartment, starting my dream job as an interior designer. I loved it: the creativity, the challenge, the satisfaction of transforming spaces. One evening, while sketching out ideas for a client, I received a text from Mom. "Jake's contract wasn't renewed. He's devastated. Your dad's looking for an agent to find him a new team. Please call your brother. He won't talk to anyone." I stared at the message. Part of me felt sympathy for Jake. I knew how much hockey meant to him. But another part of me, a part I wasn't proud of, felt a sense of satisfaction. Maybe now my parents would realize that there was more to life than hockey. I didn't call Jake that night or the next. I told myself I was busy with work, but deep down, I knew I was avoiding the drama. It was easier to focus on my own life, on building the career I'd always dreamed of. Months went by, and I heard snippets from my parents about Jake's ongoing search for a new team. Agents, trials, rejections, it all seemed so distant, like I was hearing about someone else's life. I threw myself into my job, taking on more clients and pushing myself to new creative heights. My designs were starting to gain recognition, and my reputation was growing. Just when I had convinced myself to focus solely on my career, love came unexpectedly. His name was Eric. We met at a client's housewarming party. He was the charming guy who spilled red wine on the pristine white carpet I had so carefully selected. As I helped him clean the mess, we started chatting, and before I knew it, we spent the entire evening in our own little world. Our relationship blossomed quickly, and within 6 months, we were inseparable. By our first anniversary, we decided to move in together. The next 2 years of living together were pure bliss, laughter, love, and the kind of happiness I had longed for. On my 25th birthday, Eric took me to dinner, and afterward, we took a walk in the park. Suddenly, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a velvet box. As he slipped the ring onto my finger, I felt a surge of joy, and then the familiar pang of anxiety. How would my parents react? Would they even care? To my surprise, when I called to share the news, they seemed genuinely happy. They insisted on meeting Eric and offered to host a dinner for us. I was cautiously optimistic as we made plans to visit my childhood home that weekend. The dinner started off smoothly. My parents greeted Eric warmly, and for once I felt like the center of attention. But then, as the main course arrived, the conversation took a predictable turn. "So, Eric," Dad began, refilling his wine glass, "did Amber tell you about her brother Jake? He's quite the hockey player." I felt my stomach drop as they launched into the details of Jake's latest attempt to revive his hockey career. Eric, bless him, tried several times to steer the conversation back to our engagement, but it was like trying to stop a freight train. Still, the evening ended on a positive note. My parents insisted on picking up the tab and gave us their blessing. As we left, Mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. Let's get together soon to start planning, okay?" In the weeks that followed, I found myself swept up in the whirlwind of wedding planning. My mom became my constant companion in this journey. We discussed color schemes over coffee, spent weekends visiting venues, and had an emotional moment as I tried on wedding dresses. Even Dad got involved, insisting on paying for half the wedding expenses, haggling with Eric's parents like it was a business deal. He was determined to win at something. One evening, I caught him bent over the seating charts, absorbed in his task like he was watching hockey with Jake. "Dad," I said, startled. "You don't need to do that. We've got the seating covered." He glanced up, offering a gentle smile. "Nonsense, sweetheart. This is your big day. I want everything to be perfect." A warm sense of love enveloped me. This was all I had ever longed for, to be the center of my parents' world, to feel cherished and significant. One afternoon, I found myself at the dining table, surrounded by fabric samples and floral catalogs, while Mom and Linda, Eric's mother, argued about napkin shades. "I'm telling you, cream is the way to go," Mom said, waving a swatch in the air. "It's timeless, sophisticated, and matches everything." Linda disagreed. "But blush would match beautifully with the bridesmaids' dresses. Amber, what do you think?" I smiled, trying to stay neutral. Honestly, both would be lovely. They both stared at me, clearly puzzled. "Amber, darling," Mom said, gently patting my hand. "This is your special day. Every little detail matters." I held back a laugh. Who would have thought my mom would be this invested in my wedding? The napkin debate was soon followed by a heated discussion about the music playlist. Dad and Tom, Eric's dad, nearly got into an argument over whether we should have a live band or a DJ. I exchanged an amused glance with Eric. "How about both?" I suggested. "A band for the ceremony and dinner, and a DJ for the party afterward." Both men looked at me in surprise. "Now that's thinking," Dad said proudly. "See, Tom, my girl's got it all figured out." But even as I relished the attention, reality hit. Just as we were finalizing the venue, Mom's phone buzzed. Her face lit up as she read the message. "Oh, great news. Jake has a tryout with a team in Calgary next week." And just like that, the magic faded. "That's great," I said, trying to mask my disappointment. "We'll need to reschedule the cake tasting." Mom, already typing rapidly, said, "Your father and I need to go with Jake. This could be his big break." Over the next few weeks, this became a regular occurrence. For every wedding task we completed, something related to Jake popped up. A venue walkthrough was canceled for Jake's essential training session. A florist appointment was cut short because Mom and Dad had to rush Jake to a sudden interview. One evening, as Eric and I reviewed the guest list, I broke down. "I don't understand," I cried, leaning into Eric's shoulder. "They're spending so much on Jake's hockey dreams, but they can't stick around for one florist meeting." Eric held me close. "I know it's hard, babe, but at least they're helping with the wedding costs, right? That's something." I wiped my eyes, nodding. He was right. The old Amber would have been furious, ready to call off the wedding. But I was trying to be more understanding, more mature. The days flew by in a blur of wedding planning. Despite the occasional interruption caused by Jake's career, everything seemed to be falling into place. The venue was perfect, the flowers ordered, and my dress fit like a dream. I could almost feel the happiness ahead of me. Then, a week before the wedding, I was reviewing last-minute details with the planner when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Hi, Mom," I said. "I was about to call you about the rehearsal dinner." "Amber, honey," Mom cut in, her voice tense. "We need to talk. Your father has an urgent business trip, and we need to reschedule the rehearsal. We might even have to postpone the wedding." I froze. "Wait, what?" I gasped. "Mom, please tell me you're joking. I wish I was sweetheart, but your father's job is important. I need to go with him for support. We'll let you know when we're back and can set a new date." My mind raced. This couldn't be happening. Not now. We were so close. "Mom, the wedding is in a week. We can't just postpone it." "What about the guests? The vendors? Everything's already paid for." "I know it's inconvenient, Amber, but sometimes these things happen. You'll understand when you're older." I ended the call in a daze, feeling my world collapse. How could they do this after everything? After all the moments I thought we'd shared? Was I still so unimportant to them? An hour later, Eric found me curled up on the bed, tears streaming down my face. I explained everything, my voice cracking with emotion. We spent hours coming up with possible solutions, but nothing felt right. As night fell, I scrolled through social media, trying to escape the turmoil in my mind. Then I saw it, a post from Jake. "Off to Eastern Europe, excited to show these European clubs what real hockey looks like. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for always having my back. This is going to be my big break." The pieces clicked together with a sickening realization. There was no business trip. My parents were flying halfway across the world for Jake's latest hockey dream, and they were willing to sacrifice my wedding to do it. With shaking hands, I dialed Jake's number. Each ring felt like an eternity. "Hey, sis," Jake's cheerful voice came through. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Jake, I just saw your post. What's going on?" "Oh man, it's incredible," he said excitedly. "Mom and Dad are the best. They're covering everything, the flight, my agent, even a fancy hotel. They're coming with me for support. Can you believe it?" My heart sank. "When exactly are you leaving?" "We leave next Friday. The tryouts start on Sunday." "Next Friday?" I asked, dread settling in. "My wedding day." There was a brief pause, then Jake chuckled. "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." "Well, you can always reschedule, right? This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance." I couldn't believe it. "Reschedule?" "Jake, it's my wedding. How can you even suggest that?" "Look, Amber," he said dismissively, "my career is more important than your wedding. You can get married anytime, but this might be my last shot at making it big in hockey." Something inside me snapped. Years of frustration and pain spilled out. "Are you serious? Do you have any idea how many times I've been pushed aside for your hockey dreams? How many times Mom and Dad have chosen you over me? And now you want me to give up my wedding day?" "Hey, it's not my fault Mom and Dad see my potential," Jake said coldly. "Don't hate the player, hate the game." I was stunned. "Jake, you're 22. It's time you handled your own career without Mom and Dad holding your hand." He laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. Why would I do that when they're so eager to help? I'd be crazy to turn down their support. "Can't you see how selfish you're being?" I begged, my voice trembling with desperation. "Just this once. Can't you let this moment be about me?" Jake's response was cold, his tone flat. "Sorry, sis, I'm not concerned about your wedding. I'm not sacrificing my career for your little event." The phone call ended abruptly, leaving me stunned. My own brother dismissing one of the most important events of my life, and my parents willing to deceive me and abandon me for Jake's latest hockey dream. Anger bubbled up inside me. Why was it always about him? Why couldn't they be honest with me? The unfairness of it all felt suffocating. I sank into the couch, struggling to make sense of everything. All the years of excuses, of hoping things would change. None of it mattered now. The drive to my parents' house was heavy with tension. Eric held my hand, silently offering his support. "You've got this," he whispered, and I nodded, drawing strength from him. Mom opened the door with a hesitant smile, which faltered when she saw our serious faces. "Amber, Eric, what a surprise." "Come in," she said. We found Dad in the living room, quickly closing his laptop as we entered. "Mom, Dad," I began, keeping my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "We need to talk about the wedding and Jake's trip to Europe." Their faces fell, guilt flashing across their features before they regained their composure. "What about Jake?" Dad asked, feigning innocence. "I know everything," I said, cutting him off. Jake told me about the hockey tryouts in Europe. This isn't just some business trip. The silence that followed was heavy. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, their facade crumbling. All right, Mom sighed. Yes, we're going with Jake, but Amber, you have to understand. Understand what? I interrupted, frustration bubbling over. That once again, you're choosing Jake over me. That my wedding doesn't matter compared to his hockey dreams. Dad's expression hardened. You're being selfish, Amber. This is Jake's future, and as his family, we need to support him. I stared at him, disbelief taking over. Selfish? What about all the times you've put Jake first? My graduations, my achievements, now my wedding. When has it ever been about me? Amber, Mom pleaded, you have your life with Eric. Jake still needs us. To do what? I shot back. Chase a dream that's never going to happen. He's 22, Dad. When will you let him figure things out on his own? The room fell silent. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I'm not canceling the wedding. If you choose not to be there, that's on you. I'm done waiting for Jake's dreams. Mom and Dad stared at me, shock written on their faces. Dad's expression darkened. Listen here, he growled, pointing a finger at me. We're paying for half of this wedding. If you don't do what we want, we'll cancel everything. You can't afford it without us. Eric tensed beside me, ready to speak up, but I squeezed his hand, signaling him to stay quiet. Actually, Dad, I said calmly, though my emotions were anything but, we can afford it. Eric and I are taking out a loan to cover your half. We'll pay you back every cent. The week leading up to the wedding felt like a blur. Despite my hopes, my parents didn't come around. They didn't show up, and they didn't apologize. The day of my wedding was everything I had dreamed of. The sky was clear, the ceremony beautiful, and I walked down the aisle alone. Not with my father, but on my own terms. Eric stood waiting for me at the altar, his face full of love and joy. In that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. We exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through whatever life threw our way. The cheers from our friends and chosen family filled the air, and it was perfect. The reception was filled with joy, laughter, dancing, and moments of pure happiness. Eric and I shared our first dance as a married couple, and our friends lifted us on their shoulders, celebrating our love. It was everything I had longed for. But just a week after returning from our honeymoon, reality set in. My phone buzzed with a call from my mother. Amber, sweetie, she said, her voice strained and tired. We're back from Europe. Can we meet? We need to talk. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. No, Mom. I don't think that's a good idea. But Jake didn't make the team. He's devastated. He needs you, Amber. I felt a pang of sympathy but fought it down. I'm sorry to hear that, Mom. But it's not my problem anymore. Please, focus on Jake. He needs you more than I do. I ended the call and blocked their numbers, feeling a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. The next day, I transferred the full amount my parents had contributed to the wedding into their account. It was a lot, but Eric and I were ready to pay off the loan for a while. It felt worth it to finally be free from the weight of my parents' favoritism. A few weeks later, Liv called with news. My parents had posted on social media, painting me as the villain. They accused me of being selfish for getting married without them, and Dad was heartbroken for not walking me down the aisle. The comments flooded in, most sympathizing with them, but then my relatives, those who had witnessed the years of favoritism, stepped in. They shared the truth, calling out my parents for always putting Jake first. It meant a lot to me, but I didn't engage. That chapter was closed. Months passed, and life found a new rhythm. Eric and I focused on our careers, traveled, and made plans for our future. When we found out we were expecting our first child, our joy was undisturbed by family drama. Occasionally, I'd hear about Jake's troubles. He had turned to drinking after his hockey dreams fell apart. My parents were trying to help him, dragging him from therapist to therapist. Part of me felt sorry for them, for the mess they had created, but a larger part of me knew it wasn't my burden to carry. Sitting in the nursery Eric and I had prepared for our baby, my hand resting on my growing belly, I realized something. The family I had always dreamed of, the love and support I had craved. I was building it right here, right now. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay amazed.